Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
And welcome to Stand for Truth Radio's special edition of Knowles on the News. Well, by now you've heard the exciting news. It was so exciting. There was breaking news forecasted, and then Joe Biden came out. Yes, I'm talking about Joe Biden coming out to say whether or not he was going to be running for president. As you might remember, he was in the Rose Garden alongside of the man he obviously admires most. All he could do was talk about how wonderful Obama is, the wonderful things that Obama has done, and the wonderful things that Obama is going to get accomplished in the last 15 months of his presidency. I'm sure, just like me, you stood there and watched with anticipation of what Joe was going to say as your entire world just sort of revolved around Joe's decision. And it was obvious that Joe knew the gravity of his decision. It was, I have to say, a little agonizing, maybe more than just a little agonizing. And he went on for the longest time. How long does it take to say, yes, I'm running, no, I'm not running? Well, apparently, if you're Joe Biden, even when you tell people what it is that you're going to do, you have to go on for another, I don't know how many minutes. It was just so agonizing. I don't remember. And to tell everyone what he's done in the past, present, and what he's going to do in the future. So if you haven't heard the news, Joe Biden is not running for president. Basing that, he says, on the grieving process. He's not over the grieving process. Totally understandable for any one of us who have lost a relative. I can't even imagine losing a son or daughter, how horrible it must be for that family. So he is not going to run, but he has pledged that in the next 15 months, he is going to help President Obama, conquer the world, basically. He didn't say that, but, my interpretation. And I believe him, because I think they have a lot jam-packed in their agenda to do. And it appears that, as it has been for the past 6+ years, nobody is going to stand in the way of them getting it done, and they realize that. So for everyone out there, just prepare yourself for a Second Amendment fight with Obama. You know it's going to come up. No telling how far he will go this time in his last 15 months, enacting more and more legislation that is unconstitutional and against the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, which, the document really doesn't stop him from doing anything. And again, as I said, the Congress that we have is not stopping him either and making him abide by the law of the Constitution. And I found it very interesting, too, when Joe was talking. I don't know if he misspoke or if he meant if he had run, if he had decided to run. But he made a statement that the one thing that he'd like to be the president that was remembered for curing cancer. I don't know if he meant to say the vice president that was remembered for that, or if he thinks he's the president now. I really don't know. It could be that he was talking about if he had run for president, he would do that and like to be remembered for it. But he didn't say that, and nobody's going to ask Joe, what did you mean by that? Because, first of all, you have to make sure he even knew that he said that, and then it's a whole long conversation. It's not worth it. You just kind of move on. But so where does that leave us? Well, I think that, again, just sets up Hillary Clinton to move on to be the nomination for President of the United States. And I think they all know that. And I really do think that is probably a lot of the reasons behind Joe Biden not wanting to run. And also for the fact that he would be getting in so late into the fray of things. And after all, this is an excuse. Who would want to see that breakdown occur between the three of them? Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton. It would be a train wreck. So this way, Joe can kind of avoid the train wreck by just saying, well, I'm getting in late. It wouldn't be great. I probably couldn't do as well as I obviously could do otherwise. So at least we're spared that. And I think he also knows that his party wants Hillary Clinton. It sure seems like that. So why get in just to have her sort of take over and run the show and make him look bad? Nobody's ever, come on, Joe. Nobody has to do that. You do that pretty much all on your own. So, the whole time I'm sort of tweeting out, and the only words that come to my mind are, bye, Felicia. Because he's been this vice president that really hasn't been important, let's say, as a vice president for the past 6+ years. He's sort of been the guy that, if you can imagine this, makes Obama look good because of all the things that he does. And, again, I'm not judging him as a person, don't know him as a person, but as a vice president, wow. But anyway, so we can sort of rest easy that Biden is not going to get in and muddy the waters for Hillary. I personally, though, think it would have been great if we had a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That would have been great. I really would have been looking forward to that. Sort of Donald Trump sitting there going, oh, come on, Joe. Come on. You haven't done anything, Joe. Come on. Come on. Don't tell me that. And Joe Biden sitting there going, what's he talking about? Who is this guy? Oh, yeah, that's right. Donald Trump. I forgot who was running. But we will be spared that, unfortunately, because I think that would have been really fun to watch. I think it's going to be great to watch, too, if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump get to debate. I can't even wait to see that one. The only thing is I'm going to need earphones, earplugs, something, cotton balls to put in my ears, something, so that when Hillary starts screeching, that it won't be so bad. But other than that, it'll be fun to watch. I'd have to say, though, it seems like, according at least to an ABC News and Washington Post poll, and we know how reliable those polls can be, it seems that many Americans would just love it if Obama would stay in because, my gosh, right now his approval rating is now at 51%, according to these surveys, which is a 6-point jump from the same survey in July, and an 11-point boost from the same point last year when just 40% said they approved of the job he is doing. Now, it said the president also won a majority of approval for his decision to keep troops in Afghanistan past the previously announced 2016 deadline, with 50% supporting and 39% opposed. And on the other hand, just 35% of Americans think Democratic lawmakers are doing a good job, compared with 59% who do not, and just 24% approve of their Republican counterparts, while 71% do not, both numbers roughly in line with recent years' polling. Again, I don't know how much you can really bet the farm on anything with these polls, but to have the president have any increase in his approval rating just boggles the mind. It really, really does. What is it you are approving of? Is it the fact that he's allowing, Syrian refugees who most likely are Islamists who believe in Sharia law, allowing those people into the country? Or is it just illegal immigrants in general that you approve of? Or is it turning loose criminals? Which part is it that you really love the most? And if they love that, then they're going to love this, because I was reading that, Obama is set to meet with people to talk about the criminal justice system. We must do something about the criminal justice system because it's just not working. Right now we have a lot of people on drugs and crimes on drugs, and that's why they're there in prison. And we've just got to do something about these people, that rather than put them in jail. And it's, according to Obama, it's just unequal, inequality of how these people end up in jail and who's in jail versus who isn't in jail. You know, this is all an indication of where we're going, which is, you know, we need people out of jail so that they can create more chaos in the streets, they can commit more crime, you know, whatever, to keep the American public stressed out over everything so that we're not going to get anything done. And you're certainly not going to be looking at what his agenda is because you're going to be too busy trying to figure out just how you go from day to day and survive all of this. You know, I mean, do we need more mental health type programs? Sure, you know. So why not, if you're going to do that, why not maybe help those already in prison and not turn them out early? You know, Governor Brown in California tried that, and it's not very successful. I mean, we've had people who are being raped by these people who are out on the streets that are from, you know, potentially illegal immigrants as well. I mean, and murdered. Let's not forget the woman in San Francisco. It's not working well. And then, of course, the other day we have the Democrats who, with the sanctuary city bill, we didn't even get a chance to vote on that, which would not allow illegal immigrants to remain in this country in places like, I mean, I was surprised. Dallas, Texas is a sanctuary city. That shocked me. But we're not even going to get a chance to vote on that because to tell those people that they can't stay here, that would just be a crime in and of itself. So, you know, here again, we have the majority of the House and Senate under the Republicans, and we can't get a bill even placed on the table to vote on. Come on. How bad off are we that we keep doing this day after day? And don't answer that because we all know what the answer is. We're pretty far gone. We're pretty bad off. Yeah, we really are. And you know, what are we doing about it? Well, we made a positive step. Let's get rid of John Boehner as Speaker of the House, and let's put somebody in that can possibly do something. And I mean that. Just do something that a Republican might do. I mean, something that closely resembles, at least, something that a Republican might do. And John has so graciously said, you know what, if you need me to stay on a little bit longer, I'll do that, you know, I'll for my country. Because I've been doing that all along. I'm such a great Speaker of the House. I mean, really, I've worked with the Democrats. I've reached across the aisle. I've sold the farm. I've given away the farm, whatever, to this president time and time again. But I'm such a great Speaker of the House. No, John, you can just go ahead and leave because no one has seen anything that you've done. I don't even know how long. And you've really done nothing to advance even your own party, and nothing to help the American people. So let's just call it a day. Just pretend you're Joe Biden and you've just said no and you're moving on, okay? You're leaving. And from here on out, nothing you've said is important. Not that it ever was for Joe, but I think people had hopes for you, John, that you would do something for your country by doing something for the American public. That didn't happen. And so now what do we have? Well, we have, wow, Paul Ryan. Oh, what a stellar guy. Paul Ryan stepping up to say, hey, you know what? I've thought about this long and hard, and I will run for the Speaker of the House. I know you want me, and my gosh, I'm here. I'm stepping up for you because I know how important this position is, but oh, by the way, did I tell you there are conditions? I mean, isn't that what you really want? When you want to know that somebody is really dedicated and is going to go forth and do the job that needs to be done, that the country is relying upon this person, right? And you say, well, I will step up, I will do this, but I got a few conditions that, you know, if they're not met, I don't want this. Yeah, I really feel very confident in Paul Ryan now. If I didn't before, boy, do I ever now feel so confident that he's the right guy for this position. Why don't we just leave John Boehner in? Because at least you know how bad it is, right, and what you're going to get. And with Paul Ryan, at this point, you don't even know really what you're going to get, especially when he comes out and puts conditions on things. I mean, I do think that Paul Ryan is pretty much a progressive. That's just my opinion. And I know that it seems a little soft, to say the least, on immigration, talking about needs to be a pathway for earned legalization, but talks about the border. I don't even know if I believe that anymore. I think one of the things I've learned that if a politician is speaking, pretty much don't even believe what they're saying. But, I think it's interesting, too, that whether this was a setup or not, but Harry Reid, and you remember how much Harry Reid hated Mitt Romney with a passion. So, and now, as you also remember, Paul Ryan was the potential running mate for Mitt Romney. But Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid came out and basically says that, Paul Ryan appears to him to be one of the people over there that would be reasonable. I mean, look at some of the other people. So if Paul Ryan is reasonable, according to Harry Reid, that means that he's going to roll over just like Boehner has. And one reporter said, are you saying this because, when you're saying this is going to hurt his chances? And he says, well, I just speak the truth. Don't we know that about Harry? He's always speaking the truth. And I just speak the truth, and if it helps him, fine. If it doesn't, well, then that's just too bad. Now, that last part sounds like Harry Reid. That's just too bad. I don't really care. Whatever happens, happens. It doesn't make any difference to me. That's the Harry Reid that we all know and love and can't wait for him to leave office, right? Don't you agree? And then, so getting back to the conditions that Ryan has set forth, for taking the position and gladly serving as the Speaker of the House, he said that his party would have to essentially unite behind his candidacy. Okay. And I guess that's why a couple people saying, oh, well, we'll just bow out here. Daniel Weber hasn't bowed out, but the other Chaffetz, I believe, he's bowed out and said, I'm all in for Paul. So great. And the condition also, the party has until Friday to let him know. Friday, I don't know if you know this, if you're somebody who works out there in private corporations or even in government, I think Friday's the day they usually, if you're going to get fired, it's usually Friday. So they let you work all week, and then they say, could you come in the office just a moment, and it's Friday, and you're like, oh no. And they're like, yeah, might be time for you to go. And so grab your stuff and just get out. So Paul, knowing, what it's like in the real world, right? So he gives them until Friday. So you can either accept me or fire me on Friday. So anyway, he says that his conditions include transforming the party. Don't you just love that? There you go. There's that word again. Transforming the party, like we've transformed America. Anytime I hear that word now, I just think progressive. Progressive, transforming, progressive. Transforming the party from an opposition one to a proposition one. Working to ensure that the House does not experience constant leadership challenges and crises. And unifying as a conference now and not after a divisive speaker election. Okay, so in other words, you want to have full reign, no questions asked, and you want to do, whatever you want to do and bring everybody together. How does that work? And then not having anybody divisive after the speaker election. So in other words, I don't know, Paul, does that sound like a dictatorship in a way to you? I mean, you can't have it always. If you're doing a good job, nobody's going to complain. If you're doing a good job, there's not going to be any division. If you're doing a good job, then you're not going to have to worry about telling people, well, I'll only do this if you won't talk about me afterwards, or if you won't have any problems with me, or you just let me do what I want to do. Gosh, can't we even elect a Speaker of the House that will work in our best interest? Is there nobody out there, a living, human, breathing, somebody with pulse that cares about the GOP and about doing what's best for the American people? Come on. There's got to be one person alive today. I mean, the Democrats, I know they use dead people for voting, but I mean, we don't we have one person? I mean, Louis Gohmert would be great. Trey Gowdy, who doesn't want it, would be great. Somebody like that, who really cares about the American people. Not somebody who says, gosh, I'll only take it if you let me have my way and you don't gripe about it afterwards. Because, that's what leaders are like, and that's what leaders do. Leaders are leaders because they can tell you to sit down and shut up and not criticize them. Gosh, don't we have a leader like that in the White House right now? And then I just love this, and I understand this. You have a family. I get it. And you want to spend time with them. I understand that. I think it's a great thing. But I also think that if your family is your first priority, and it should always be your first priority. But I don't necessarily know that you have to voice that and say that. Especially when again, you got the American public who's wanting you to go in there, make changes, do something that we can be proud of for once in it's been 8 years and longer. You say, I cannot and I will not give up my family time. I may not be on the road as often as previous speakers, but I pledge to try and make up for it with more time communicating our vision and our message. Okay. Again, I don't know why you have to say that. Why don't you just say, if I'm Speaker of the House, I'm probably going to do things differently, and that is I'm just going to be communicating the message through social media, the internet, doing different talks, or, having recorded speeches, whatever. But, to bring that up, it makes me very hesitant. While I want him, again, to spend time with his family, and I think he should, I'm not sure that would be something that I would be talking about that openly or putting it in those terms. And I guess for me that goes a little bit to his judgment as Speaker of the House again, and his priorities, quite frankly. I just feel that all around that a Paul Ryan Speaker of the House is not the direction that we really want to go in, need to go in, and should go in. Again, it looks like, though, that once again, the GOP is going to do something that the American public is not in support of. And we're going to have another 15 months of getting absolutely nothing passed, nothing done, nothing accomplished, that we can sit back and go, gosh, I'm really proud of what we've done. It just doesn't seem to work for us anymore. But clearly one of the things that I really think would hurt the most in having him be the candidate, the one running for the Speaker of the House and actually getting the Speaker of the House, he wants to overhaul what is known as the motion to vacate the chair, and would make it harder for a Speaker of the House to be ousted. Once again, Paul sounds to me more like a dictator than somebody who is trying to do what's in the best interest of the country. If you're not doing that, then you should go. And, I know Congress doesn't like term limits. I believe there should be term limits. And I don't believe that we should have somebody running for Speaker of the House who says, I want to come in there and I have condition X, Y, and Z, and by the way, one of the conditions is I don't want to be put out as Speaker of the House. If you're going to give me the job, then I'm going to keep doing it. No. It shouldn't work that way. It's not set up to work that way. And again, GOP, come on. Why are you... Well, no, don't answer that. I know why. And the American public knows what you're trying to do. And the American public does not like this. But we seem to be kind of ineffective these days in getting our Congress people to listen to us without any solution for ourselves. But I go back to what I've said many times before. It has to start at the local level. You have to get these people out before they get up and keep coming up and climbing the ladder, if you will, in this career politician track that that so many are on. You have to get them eliminated before they get too big. That's the key. Once they get there to that high power, they just, for most of them, the majority of them, it just goes to their head, goes to their wallets, and they're done. They're done. So, Paul Ryan, if we're up to me, you would not be Speaker of the House. You would be not even a nominee right now, because with demands like this, you're crazy. You're crazy. And that's what the American public should say. You're crazy. And they should do everything to call anybody and everybody to try to stop this. Now, moving on to other topics, I wrote an article that's up on the Blaze. It's called, Hey Millennials, the UN would love for you to live in a van down by the river. I don't know if you remember that hilarious Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Farley when he was playing a motivational speaker, Matt Foley. Gosh, one of the funniest scenes. And unfortunately, it wasn't too long after that, I guess, that he died. But the whole scene was about these two teenagers that had been caught with, pot in their house. And the parents wanted to figure out, what are we going to do? How are we going to help these kids? Oh, I know. Let's just hire a motivational speaker. And he comes on and he says, kids, if you don't change your ways, then you're going to be eating a steady diet of government cheese and living in a van down by the river. You got to go back and watch that skit. It's hilarious, totally hilarious. And I also have it up on my website at SusanKnowles.com. But the point I was trying to make, in 1993, this is, our culture is forever changing and sometimes not for the better. But in 1993, American culture considered someone living in a van to be a loser. Let's face it. That's what they would have been called. And it would have, today, it would be politically incorrect to even say that. I mean, how could you call somebody a loser for living in a van? Now, of course, nobody is talking about homeless people or people that, dire straits that have to live in their cars. God love those people. It's not a choice for them. It's something that they have to do, and no one would call them that. But somebody who is able to do otherwise and still living, in a van down by the river would not be looked at as somebody that was very successful. But I think after reading this article yesterday, and of course it's from San Francisco, I have to warn you, it's out of San Francisco. There is a new person, a millennial, who, in my mind, would be the absolute poster child for Agenda 2030, that, the UN's Agenda 2030. It's a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. Now, doesn't that sound just great to you? Can you just feel the warmth from all that and the control from all that? So there's this guy whose name is Brandon, and he didn't give his last name. I don't know why. Why wouldn't you want to give your last name? But he is a successful millennial who's 23. He's employed by Google as a software engineer. And he's living not in a van and not down by the river, but he's living in a 128 square foot truck in the Google parking lot. Now, his reasons for living there, he said, basically he understood that he was spending a huge amount of money looking for an apartment. and he's, almost never at home. So it was really hard to justify throwing that kind of money away. He said, you're essentially burning it. You're not putting equity in anything, and you're not building it up for a future. And that was really hard for me to reconcile. And he was talking about how, in San Francisco, it's about $2,000 a month for a tiny little apartment. And he's right, because it is. It's expensive. But you don't have to live in San Francisco. You can live other places. And I don't know, Brandon, but there are things called roommates. There's an ability to rent a room from someone. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do without resorting to living in a truck in your employer's parking lot. Now, he purchased the 2006 Ford truck that has 157,000 miles on it for $10,000. So he's set. He's got this great truck. Not really. You should see the photos. Not really a nice truck that sits in the parking lot. And inside the truck is a bed, a dresser, and a coat rack for hanging his clothes. And he also says that inside the truck are a few stuffed animals. Well, the way I look at it, what more could he possibly need? And, as for showers and meals, that's not a problem. And I'm guessing that Google pays for that and then, passes the cost on to people like you and me in the long run. And I'm sure that Google's probably not charging him for the rent of parking in their parking lot. I don't know how many people, like if you and I went to that parking lot and set up camp, I don't think we'd be welcome there. I'm just guessing. I'm guessing the security guards are going to come out and they're going to say, excuse me, Ms. Knowles, could you just move it along, because you're not going to be living in our parking lot. But this young man is. And he eats all of his meals on the Google campus, and then he showers in the corporate gym after his workout. Now, obviously Google is very generous in giving their employees a lot of perks, which is great. But, he never has to leave home, his truck. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He doesn't have to drive it anywhere. He can just have it sitting right there in the parking lot. Now, he says not having to pay the high cost of rent in San Francisco each month allows him to eat at the finer restaurants in the area. And it'll also allow him to travel in the future, which he hopes to do. Now, I don't know about you. Hopefully he's not looking to have a partner of any sort down the road, because unless they're all in for this, truck thing, but I'll tell you what, I'll give him some credit. He's at least not living in his parents' basement, okay? So I'm not saying it's a total fail, but I'm just saying there are alternatives we could have looked at, Brandon. I mean, come on. And I've seen this on the HGTV shows. They come up with these living in tiny houses, these 200 square foot or 400 square foot homes. Like, oh, you know what? You want to live here because you just need a place to lay your head. You're not going to stay here. You want to go out. You want to be doing all these wonderful activities out there because that's you. You're the active guy or gal. It's this whole thing to make it look like this is really wonderful and you should take part in it. What this is, I hate to tell you this, but and you guys, you probably already know, this is Agenda 2030. You've heard of Agenda 21, but this is in effect. This is just taking it to a whole new level, convincing the American public, especially the millennials, this is what you want. We're not telling you have to do this, but gosh, we just need you to be kinder to the environment, kinder to climate change concerns. Cut down on your carbon footprint. And this is the best way to do it. We know you want to do it. So let's take it to the extreme and let's get you on board. Okay, Brandon's already on board. Brandon's right there. He's like a great example. Poster child, as I said, needs a gold star because he's so good already, with this Agenda 2030 stuff. I had a guest on my show recently. I don't know if you were able to listen to it, but he wrote the book Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. And he talked about how the UN is going towards a plan of scientific dictatorship by having us adhere to global programs such as sustainable development, green economy, and smart growth. So this is just another step towards that. And there were 17 sustainable development goals. And I think Brandon has already mastered goal number 11, which is make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Here we go. I mean, he's got affordable housing, right? He's got this low-cost truck and has acquired basic services courtesy of Google, where he gets all of his food, his showers, and did I mention that he takes his little, battery pack and plugs it in during the day so he can take the power from Google as well and not have to pay for that. How great is that? You can use somebody else's electricity, and you don't have to pay for that either. I mean, come on. Brandon deserves a gold star for all of this. He's very inventive. And he doesn't have to worry about, high transportation costs because, his truck is just mainly parked in that same location, doesn't go anywhere. I don't know if he has another car. I don't know how he gets to all these outdoor activities and these finer restaurants. Probably, my guess would be that he's hitching a ride, as they say, from somebody else. Or, this is another possibility. He's got this really cool bicycle that he's taking to all these finer restaurants. You can pedal there, put on a suit jacket when you get there. It's one that's been rolled up and sort of put in a little bundle on your bicycle or in your little basket, wherever. You can always do that. So I'm sure that's what he's doing. The guy's just got it down pat. No carbon footprint, all that stuff. Saving the environment. What more could you ask for from somebody who's just trying to do the right thing, right? Trying to do the right thing. And what I thought was, wouldn't it be great, and I really think they should push this, but wouldn't it be great if everyone who works with Google decided, you know what, Brandon's got something here. We're just going to all go out, buy ourselves an old truck. We're going to park it in the parking lot with Google's parking lot with their permission, I'm sure. And we're all going to just stay there and help the environment and help all these global programs that are coming up. Have a little commune there, and everybody could start sharing everything, And at some point, Google will probably say, "Come on, people, our electricity bill's going up." But until that happens, why not just sort of take advantage of that? It's kind of like, what's familiar that did something like that before? That's Occupy Wall Street, right? So what's the difference other than the fact that these people, Brandon has a job, these people don't with this Occupy Wall Street. Typically they don't, and they're living and sort of taking advantage of the people that they're living on the property of. So, we're close, but not quite there. But anyway, again, not to put Brandon down, because at least he has a job, he's a hard worker, but let's get real, Brandon. In other news, there was another killing of a police officer. It's the fourth officer killed in the line of duty in the city of New York in the past 11 months. Nationwide, it's 31 police officers have been killed in the line of duty so far, and this man that was killed was shot in the head when chasing a robbery suspect in Harlem, East Harlem, and he died a few hours later. He was an African-American man that you'll never hear this president talk about because it doesn't fit his agenda, and I don't think that you'll hear any speeches today from the president about how important it is. Here's the thing. If a police officer who is armed has trouble defending themselves. Because I'll tell you something, if you're a police officer, if somebody wants to kill you, they will do it. And you're basically a sitting duck. You really are. Even though you're armed, people can come out of nowhere. But if a police officer is armed and still dies, how can you justify wanting to take the Second Amendment rights away from American citizens that will leave them totally unarmed? So here you have an officer who's armed against a criminal, and then you want to take the Second Amendment rights away from private citizens so they will be unarmed against criminals. Is there something going on here that I don't see? And nobody, I don't hear anybody making this argument really for the Second Amendment rights. Make this argument next time. If police officers have trouble and they get shot and killed by criminals, what's to make you think, Mr. President, Mr. Other people in the administration, or Ms. anybody else in the administration, what makes you think that unarmed American citizens are going to be able to protect themselves against criminals? And I know what you would say. You would say, well, that criminal, if there were strict gun laws, that criminal wouldn't have a gun. They would obey the laws. Yeah, like they're obeying the other laws that put them in prison. Laws against rape, laws against murder, laws against battery, all those things. Because there are laws on the books that all the criminals obey. Come on. But I feel so bad for this young man's family, and senseless, absolutely senseless murder of this man. And the suspect, Tyrone Howard, is in custody. And listen to this. This is one of these people that it's just textbook. It's who Obama is going to be fighting to. People like this, fighting to get people out of prison, just like this guy, because, and again, this is the alleged suspect, okay? But he has 20 prior arrests. So here we have a criminal who, again, if you just show him the law, he's going to obey it, right? That's the logic here. He has 20 prior arrests of assault, robbery, and the criminal cell of a controlled substance. And so could anyone explain to me why this guy was out walking around free? And how many more people, after this Obama program of just transforming the judicial system and the prison system, how many more people like that are going to be out walking around on the streets? Even more reasons that you should hold on to your Second Amendment rights. We shouldn't even be having a discussion about, our Second Amendment rights. That's been settled a long time ago, right? When the Constitution was written. But we keep bringing it up as often as we can. I don't think this will be an occasion for him to want to bring it up, though, because, again, this man, being an African-American man, doesn't fit his agenda. And also, he's a police officer, so we just can't really use that fact to our advantage, I guess. In other news, I was really sort of disappointed, more than sort of disappointed. I was disappointed in the American Cancer Society for coming out and changing their long-standing policy of the fact that women need to have mammograms every year, starting at around age 40. Having a screening then to sort of have a basis from which to work. But they've said every year, you need to have a mammogram. And now they've changed that. Now they're saying, you know what, maybe every other year is not so bad. And you have to look at that, and you have to know that when women aren't getting mammograms each year, that's going to be a problem. Now, they've clarified that, saying, well, it should be the woman's choice. But when they start saying things like that, especially when people are under Obamacare, it's going to be looked at as, okay, well, if the American Cancer Society, this big organization is saying that we shouldn't give mammograms, they're just not necessary, why should we do it? Let's just not pay for that. Is that the way that it's going to be? And it's typically how it turns out. Now, they did say that a woman should have a right to choose, like I said. But, again, if your insurance company doesn't pay for that and it comes out of your pocket and you're not able to pay for that, then you're going to go without a mammogram. And it could, for some people, be the difference between life and death. And I say that as someone whose mother, passed away because of breast cancer. So this is a subject to me that is very important. I'm not worried so much that with this war on women and giving women free birth control, I would rather women have free mammograms than birth control, to be quite honest. I mean, they can, do whatever, but I think birth control is cheaper than having a mammogram. I know something like that is at least going to cost you $300 at the very least. It takes that much for them to run the machines, according to the people that do this type of stuff. So, they can't afford that out of pocket cost. So again, I was really disappointed at the American Cancer Society came out with that. Now, they're a good group. I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm sure they do a lot of things, cancer research, although there have been people who say they don't do so much about total research, but they do more of bringing awareness. Well, if you're not doing the research along with the awareness, what good is it? So again, we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But it was, to me, very disappointing to have them make that decision. And I would have to think that somewhere that this decision was prompted by some pressure from this administration, maybe subtly. But why, after all of these years, would you just suddenly change your opinion on that? Doesn't make sense. And then we have a follow-up to some news regarding Ebola. You remember all of the scare that we had with Ebola and people coming here, Obama just opening the gates and allowing people to come in with Ebola. This Scottish nurse who contracted Ebola while working in West Africa, there's been a lot of discussion over the last week, I would say, about this woman. She's 39 years old. She's been readmitted to an isolation unit at the Royal Free Hospital in London after suffering an apparent relapse. But health officials confirmed she'd been diagnosed with meningitis caused by the Ebola and has a very long recovery ahead of time. And now they want everybody to know that she hasn't been reinfected with the Ebola virus, that it was meningitis that kind of was in her brain and has basically surfaced at this time. This is the original Ebola virus that she had many months ago, which has been lying inside the brain, replicating at a very low level, probably, this is according to the doctor, and has now reemerged to cause this clinical illness of meningitis. And this is obviously a serious thing. Yeah, I would say so. And I don't know how much of that I believe or not. I don't think that we got really clear information when all of this was happening. And I don't know if we're going to get clear information now. But it just seems odd that, with meningitis, and I'm not a doctor, but it takes a very short period of time, and some forms of meningitis can actually kill you, in my understanding. How did she go this long from the scare of last year to suddenly developing meningitis? None of this makes sense, but again, hopefully we'll find out some more accurate information down the road, but I wouldn't count on it. And then in other news, there's always a story that you can find where people are trying to basically shut down Christians from worshiping their God. And it usually comes out of some place like, I don't know, New York, but it could be anywhere. A high school student, 17-year-old quarterback Dante Turo, was basically raised by his family to give glory to God, especially on the football field. And apparently he and his dad had talked about, a way that Dante could sort of, respectfully not take credit for what he had done, but to give God credit, even if it meant, during the football game that he had to do that. And as I said, his dad encouraged him to do that after big plays and to just show respect to God and praise God. And he wanted to do something at that moment to take credit away from himself. This was after, on October 17th, he ran 73 yards for a touchdown, which is, absolutely wonderful. And so what does he do? You would expect they would say, oh, well, he was just, he got down on his knees. He was causing a big commotion. We couldn't get the game started back up. He was taking up our time, and we just can't have that. Right? I mean, you would expect a story like this where they're going against the quarterback, something, and against God more importantly, that something that the quarterback did was just way over the top. No, it wasn't way over the top. You know what he did? He ran into the end zone. He pointed a finger up to the sky and gave the ball to the referee. Wow. And the referee said that he was taunting. Don't know who he was taunting, but according to the referee, he was taunting. And I guess there's a video that shows that the quarterback runs into the end zone and briefly raises his finger before tossing the pigskin, to the referee. But that we just can't have that. That's just unacceptable behavior. And as soon as he raised his finger, the referee tossed the flag. And basically, this 17-year-old was penalized 15 yards for unsportsmanlike conduct, excessive celebration. Excessive celebration. Perhaps what happened was he probably put his finger in towards the sky, towards heaven, right? And then he probably made the mistake of also looking up at the same time. But with the finger alone, maybe that wouldn't be excessive, but if he looked up, maybe that's what put it over the top for this referee. Sheesh. Now, he immediately talked to the referee and told him, I wasn't trying to do anything malicious or arrogant. I was just trying to give praise to God. Well, Dante, we can't have that. Come on. Public display of praise to God in a school football game. We just can't do that. We're gonna have to punish you for that, young man. So what does the referee do? He says, according to Dante, he said, don't do it again. I think probably if he did it again, the guy would just have him ejected from the game. Get out of here. You taunter, get off the playing field. Don't ever come back. And, you keep your finger to yourself and take it to somebody else's game. And Dante says, I tried to explain to the referee that threw the flag and the head referee. So we got not only the referee that threw the flag. We were trying to talk to him. We're trying to bring reality into a conversation. That Dante, you're 17. I know you're young, but this is where you made your mistake. You were trying to use common sense and reality to have a conversation. Oh, good Lord. Didn't your father teach you anything? You don't do that anymore. You can't do that. You have to, it would have been better. Here's what you should have done. You should have immediately sort of given homage to whatever statue was around. Okay? Statue of school mascot, something you could have prayed to. If you'd have run over there and maybe sort of, gathered a crowd around the statue and prayed to the statue, nothing would have been wrong with that. That would have been perfectly fine, it sounds like, in your school system. But you made the mistake of pointing your finger up to God and then looking up, and then you tried to explain that using common sense terms and reality that, hey, I wasn't doing anything to cause a problem, to be arrogant. I quietly just gave praise to my God. Well, that's where you made your mistake. And, of course, this is just a long-standing policy with the school that, people can't do anything that allows the school or the referees to explain their position on this. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But what's happening is what everybody knows. This is Christians once again being shut down. You're not able to display your beliefs. They want you to do that at home, or just don't do it at all, but just don't do it anywhere. What I would do? I would just tell the school, either my son and everybody else here is allowed to do something like that, or you can get yourself another quarterback. And I know it's probably not going to happen because this kid probably has aspirations, wants to go on as the NFL, but I wouldn't stand for that in the school. And I think every parent there should approach the school board and say, if you don't let this kid do this and other kids do that, at the end of a play where they quietly put a finger up and look up to the sky, well, then we're just not going to play. Either that or I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But you know what? I just don't think it's a big deal out of nothing. I think this is a common practice that we're just seeing more and more of it. And it's going to get worse if we don't do something about it. On some of these things when it's just, well, we could just let that one go. No, if you just let that one go, the left isn't going to let it go. They're just going to keep going on until the next time you want to do something. It'll just add to the problem, and then the problem will be greater than it is right now. You need to stop it right now, period. And I hope this dad does something to that effect. Who knows what the follow-through is going to be, but, not something that you're going to really hear in mainstream media because it mentions God. And then finally, we have one of those stories that just shows special treatment and who gets it and who doesn't get it. A story of a Saudi prince who is accused of gay sex, threats, and expelling gas in the face of another person. I know that it's hard to believe already, but here goes. He's accused by 3 female staffers of acting like a bizarre party boy, engaging in a gay sex act in front of them, threatening a woman's life, and demanding that an assistant expel gas in his face while others watched, and declaring, "I am a prince and I do what I want." He also, and this was while not in Saudi Arabia. This is while he was in his $37 million mansion in Beverly Hills. Now, there's a lawsuit that has been filed by a trio of women who worked for him. And they accuse him of making crude sexual advances on men and women and doing drugs, among other things. He is accused of getting on top of one woman and grinding on her in a sexual and aggressive manner. He also allegedly threatened the life of another woman after she refused to party with him. Now, also, at one point, he's been accused of taking a liking to one woman, and he made her supposedly stand next to him all night before telling her, "Tomorrow I will have a party with you, and you will do everything I want, or I will kill you." Wow. Sounds like a prince of a guy. Now, the L.A. District Attorney's Office on Monday announced it was dropping felony charges of sexual assault against the prince, who was earlier accused of trying to force a woman into a sex act at his mansion. And little footnote is, the DA could still pursue misdemeanor charges. Even if that's true, do you really think that this Saudi prince will see any jail time? Or will he just sort of conveniently maybe disappear, if need be, for a while, and the mansion will just stay empty for a little while? Nothing is surprising anymore. Absolutely nothing. But you can bet that this Saudi prince will just go ahead and have another party as soon as possible. And, it wouldn't surprise me to know that there have been many parties following the lawsuit, because this apparently happened sometime in the end of September. Nothing is surprising anymore, is it, folks? I mean, really, nothing is surprising. You have to kind of keep up with everything as it goes along, and just know that the next story that you're going to hear is probably going to be something that is more bizarre, or, a situation where somebody is getting better treatment than someone else, especially if they're here from Saudi Arabia. So glad that I was able to share the news with you today. And until next time, have a great week. Take care. God bless. See you soon.